same thing, doesn't make a difference. And the answer is, as long as the person has kavana, doesn't make a difference. And the Rebbe points out that it doesn't say over here, doesn't use the name Hashem or Elokim, it's l'shamayim. When a person's looking up to heaven, when the person's looking up to the Shemayim, the person's keeping his eye on the ball, constantly knowing from Vemen state to from Farvemen state. And you know that it's not about you who's bringing the carbon. It's not about how much money you spend, or if it's a big carbon or a small carbon. As long as you know that you're giving up from yourself and you're doing it for the Eibishter, and the emphasis is on who you're trying to help, then it doesn't matter. And I think this is what it boils down about Nosson. And I think this really tells a lot about who he is. It's true that he was a guy who had a lot of chayes in life. But when he sat and learned Tanya Bapeh, it was not because he's an introvert and he has a good head. And therefore he says, how am I going to put my kerchs and my chushim to good use? And therefore I'm going to go and learn Tanya Bapeh. For him, it was about being with Kushitzum Rebbe. And if it was learning a Secha, it was learning a Maimer, it was learning Tanya Bapeh, it was learning a Gemara, it didn't make a difference. Doing with Tzayim, it was all the same thing. By him, it was all the Chavenes Libel HaShamayim. He was trying to do that, make the Rebbe proud. He was trying to give chayes and nachas to the Rebbe. That was his goal in life. He had nothing else really that motivated him. And I think this is what made Nosson so special. Extrovert, introvert, this is our shtusim, our way we're trying to make sense out of things. But somebody who could be focused purely on his goal in life and trying to be mekusher, that's what Nosson was all about. I just want to finish with another l'chaim over here that we should all be able to be zeichet, to be like Nosson, and be able to internalize his message in life and always remain focused on what we're trying to accomplish, and that is to make the Rebbe proud of us. And ultimately, we should be able to be together with Nosson, with all our family members, Levi, my father, and all our aunts and uncles and babas and zaydis, and be quickly reunited with them, with the Rebbe, Beresham, get out of goals speedily now. L'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim. Thank you very much, Shaya. L'chaim. It's not always that we have our uncle with us on the call, especially for Nosson's yartseit. And while today, my uncle's Sruli is one of the most chashuv rabbanim in the United States, with the shul following
in the world
of the who's who of the Orthodox Jewish world and beyond that. He's even one of his illustrious members is his sister Sima, and so truly, it's a great honor to have Uncle Suli. What?
My illustrious brother as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. But before but today we know him as a big Rav. But when I was a boy, I remember having the honor of getting a ride in Suli and Yossi's old car. That the floor in the back of the car, there was no floor. Literally, you can see the street. It was it was so rusted out that there was a hole in the floor. No jokes.
That was Bobby's car.
That was Bobby's car.
There was talk of Bobby's.
Anyway, so I share that story because today my daughter had to show a map for her class. And so she showed the map, and the introduction to showing the map to her class, my daughter is 8 years old. She said, "This is a map. My parents used to use this in the olden days." So Sruli, you're a generation older than me. I don't know what we call you then.
All right. Well,
anyway,
ahead.
Please, it gives a great honor. Sruli, please share something.
Thank you so much. I think Nosson would like if we all started with a l'chaim. I see my mother is here.
Yes.
So Bobby. So I'll start with the story of Nosson. 10 years ago, Nosson was learning in Miami. And we had time. It came opportunities to see him, and one time he came here for Shabbos, and Bubby was here, and actually sitting at this table that I'm sitting at right now. We had a few bottles on the table, and Nosson actually he was there together with from Montreal, a cousin, what's his name, Teitelbaum, and there was a bottle there, and everybody was saying l'chaim, and Nosson was saying l'chaim, and more l'chaim. And Bubby went and took away the bottle. So Bubby, the bottle is not still here, but we're going to say l'chaim. So please, l'chaim v'lebracha. So actually, I see Nissi. I think Nissi was also in Florida that year, no? Yeah? Is that him, Nissi?
Yeah, Nussi's here.
The last time
Yeah,
time I saw him, he looked a little different. Okay.
Okay.
So it was mentioned before that we read the Mishnah called Sheruach Habiyas Neichemen, Ruach Hamakim Neichemena. And that surely was Nosson. He was summoned when he came here to Shul, the Shabbos that he was here, he became friendly with everybody. Everybody knew him, everybody remembered him. He went to people, he spoke with them, he spoke with them in learning, somebody he joked around with, but he was someone who had that overwhelming personality. He always had a Dvar Torah. He was sitting Shabbos at the table, Moli Begodesh, again, the Dvar Torah with the L'chaim, before the Dvar Torah, after the Dvar Torah, but it was just someone who was just a fun guy to be around. And I remember at the Chag HaSmicha that year, so they asked me to come and speak at the Chag HaSmicha, the keynote speaker at the Chag HaSmicha. So I said that if you would want to capture Nosson in one word, it was emes. You saw somebody who was true, who was genuine in every single thing that he did. The way he went on Mitzrayim, I know my Mendy Eshel Zayim Stark said going with Nosson on Mitzrayim was fun. You went into a place, he came into the office, he poured himself coffee, he sat down, it's a Gebala Batavid, and he went and he got the people to put on tefillin and he made a connection with them. He had that kind of magnetic personality. But the reason why was because he was emes. There was nothing phony about him. The way that he learned, the way that he put himself into learning. You mentioned about his Mishnayos Baal Peh. From what I knew of Nosson, he was a great guy, but he didn't have the genius kind of a head that some people can read a Perek Mishnayos or read a Perek Tanya and they could learn, he repeat it back. He learned it because Pashat he went, he broke his head, and he learned it, and he had a system how he learned it, and he put in the time and the effort. It wasn't anything that came by easily. I remember I was in Paris, and the Kalmanson boys, who are today big Rosh Yeshivas, they went and they learned Tanya about Peh. For them, it was nothing. Baruch Hashem, Gebench the kept to learn it in that way. Nosson was not like that. Nosson went, he put in the time and the effort, and if you're thinking, what was the accomplishment that he had, and it's a lesson for everybody. You want to do something, you put your mind and your heart to it, and you'll be able to learn it. And I remember I said a word then that we say by Birchas HaTorah, Asher Nosson Lonu Torahs Emes. This is Nosson. Nosson had the Torah of Emes, because everything that he did was true, and it was durchgedrungen mit Emes. But when we say that bracha, the end of the bracha is the rest of his name. V'chaye olam nota b'seichenu. Nota means that the chaye olam, which means an eternal life, nota b'seichenu, was implanted within us. Because anybody who knew Nosson, it was you didn't forget him. So this was a chaye olam. This was an eternal kind of a life that he has. When we think of it, the picture in our mind is a young man who was at the top of his game, living life to the fullest, doing what he could with a chayes, with a bren, in any possible way. And I know when I think of him, I think many times of that Shabbos that he was here and the impact that he made on people, and it was just something that was a delight. The time that he was in Miami, he was from the beginning of the year till now, so it was a little bit more than half a year. Again, the impact that he made on the Bachrim that were there, he was a shtickle in the Anhola then. They made him in charge of some of the younger Bachrim. And it was just because it was emes. There was a truth that was in his entire personality. I'll share a little story about who Nosson was named after. And there are many Nossons that are watching this now. So Nosson was named after Uncle Nata. Uncle Nata was a rabbi in Roselle, New Jersey. And he was a brother of Zaidi Yaakov Yisrael, my mother's father. And Uncle Nata was a Talmud in Lubavitch, Sheba Lubavitch. And he said he would tell the story very proudly that he went and he was there before his bar mitzvah. And he had his bar mitzvah, as did his brother Zayda Yaakov Yisrael. He went and he had his bar mitzvah there, and when he sat down, the mashpiyim sat him down at the table, and they said, "Nata zag l'chaim," and he said, "Zag maimer." Okay, so he said, "No problem." And Uncle Nata had that kind of a head, and he said, "A maimer." They said, "Zagad vartaya a pilpul," and he said, "A pilpul," and that was his bar mitzvah. But the story that's interesting, he would tell when he came to America. So in those days, to be a rav in a community was a big kavod. I guess today it is also. And he became a rav in Roselle, New Jersey. And he went and he had to get furniture for his house. So he said he went to this big furniture store. There were 8 floors, and he went up and down. And he came down with his wife, and the owner of the store is standing there. And the owner tells him, "Nu Rebbe, hast du etwas gefunden?" So he says, "Well, I saw a lot of things." He says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Did you see?" And he mentions the name of a particular set of furniture. So Uncle Nata tells him, he says, "Yeah, that was on whatever the 4th floor. It was the 4th booth in," and he tells him the serial number of that particular set of furniture. So he says, "What I saw and I could afford, I didn't like. And what I did like, I could, what I couldn't afford, I liked. And what I could afford, I didn't like." So the owner goes through different types of furniture. And Uncle Nata told him what kind of furniture it was, where it was, what the serial number was, and what the price was. So he says, Rebbe, come into my office. So he comes into his office and he said, "I would like to offer you a job." He says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Rabbi, how much money are you making?" So let's say he told him it was probably $30 a week. He says, "You're making $30 a week. I will pay you 5 times the amount that you're making." So he says, "But I'm not a furniture salesman." He says, No, I don't need you for that. He says, "The way we buy furniture is by auction. We go to this big auction and you get a book beforehand of all the pieces of furniture, and everything has a serial number. And you have to remember which furniture it is and what the serial number is. I need you to be there at the auction because you're going to know every piece of furniture. You're going to know everything exactly what it is and what the price is, and that's where I'm going to make my money." So Uncle Nata says, the guy's offering me a salary of 5 times. He wasn't making very much to begin with. And 5 times that amount is quite, he says, "I'll let you know." So Uncle Nata, the person that he was, told me, he says, "You know what? The Rebbe wasn't there. This was probably 1930, 25 or something. It was a long time ago." And so he says, but at that time visiting, I think was Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky, or one of the big gedolim of those days, was visiting in America. And he was going to meet him the next day. So when he went to go meet him the next day, he went to him and he said, "I have this proposition. I'm a Rav in Roselle, New Jersey, and have a very nice kehillah. Actually, there are people here in my kehillah now whose parents learned together with Uncle Nata there. But in any case, he said that, he asked him, he says, "I have this proposition, what should I do?" So he said that the Rav went and he put his hand on his head and he said, Zog mir, He says, if not for Rabbanis, why did Hashem make such good heads? Good heads belong to the Rabbanim. So he said he made it at that time. That's it. I'm going to be a Rav, and no matter what, I'm going to do that. So when he told me the story, so I said, it's not Nishnar Rav, that's not Chassidish Rav. I don't know if Uncle Nata considered himself a Chassidish Rav. The time that he considered himself a Chassidish Rav, he had the kanois, because he was, where he lived is not far from Lakewood, and Rabbi Cutler would invite him every year to come to his dinner and to speak at the dinner. But Uncle Nata had the kanois in him, so he said every time that he spoke, he mentioned the Rebbe in the speech. Usually it was the Rebbe Rashab, but they all knew exactly who he was. So this idea of knowing that you have a good head, what should you use it for? So if you're a chassid, you have to know you have to use it in your shlichus, you have to use it doing the things that the Rebbe wants, doing the things that the Eibishter wants. And this is something that when we think of Nosson, and for those who didn't know him, he was just a ball of fire. He was someone who gave his heart and soul to whatever it was that he did. And the bottom line was that when he did something, he did it 100%. So today's his yartseit. I'm sure he's looking down at us, and he's looking down, and what is he saying? He's telling us we should do more, and we should push ourselves more. We should do it with the chayas, and we should do it in the way the Rebbe wants, and the way the Eibishter wants. We should see the emes and the truth of what Nosson stood for, and we should live it each and every day.
Thank you very much, truly, really. Shekayach l'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim.
Beautiful story. I never knew that. I remember Uncle Nata coming to the house all the time. Beautiful story. Shekayach.
Are you kidding? He
It's amazing.
You know, let me just share one more little story about the Rabbanis. How did it happen that I became this kind of a Rav? I'll tell you. Obviously, before he got married, the Rebbe used to buy fruit from Raskin's Fruit. So when I got engaged to Guttel, so the Rebbetzin was now Guttel was the one who delivered the fruit every week in the Rebbe's house. They didn't just send anybody, so she went to deliver the fruit. So she apologized that she'd love to come to her wedding, but she doesn't go to weddings, but she sent us her own telegram to our wedding. But afterwards, she asked if we could come and show her our wedding album. So by the time we got to show her the album, it took a year to get the album. By the time we had Rosie, we had 3 children by the time we went to go and show her the wedding album. It wasn't only our fault. We were in Springfield already. In the middle, the Rebbetzin had fallen. She broke her hip. It was anyway, finally it came by Yavlei Hayoim. We came into the Rebbe's house, and it was the most surreal moment. You come into the Rebbe's house, and what am I doing here? That was the only bastion of privacy that the Rebbe had. Nobody went to his house, and you're sitting there at the dining room table, and this is the Rebbe's dining room table, and there's the Rebbe's menorahs on the side. It was very, very surreal. And the Rebbetzin made us feel so at home. It was remarkable. But she went and she wanted to know how are things in Springfield. So she asked us, how do we get food? So we said, we have to go to New York, we have to schlep it, we have to have a freezer. So she said, when wir sind in Paris, hat man euch als gedacht. When we were in Paris, we had to do the same thing. That's the kind of warm conversation it was. But she also wanted to know about my shul. She wanted to know the shul in Springfield, what kind of shul is it? A president, there's a president, there's a board of directors, and she was really very interested. So after I described her what the shul was, she says, oh, bist du a full-comer rabbi? So you're a full-fledged rabbi. So Baruch Hashem, this is Mekuim Gvar, not just in Keser Israel, but in here as well. L'chaim, we should Mekuim Gvar the brachas, and remember all the good things. L'chaim.
Wow.
Oh, see, I mentioned.
Hi, Guttel. How are you? The big Rebbetzin. Full Kamer Rebbetzin. Amazing. Thank you very much. Shekayach. So I'd like to ask my brother Sruli, one Yaakov Yisrael after the other. I'm going to ask my brother Sruli to please share a few words in honor of this Fabrengen, in honor of Nosson. You have to unmute yourself, Sruli.
He says, the Rebbe can learn even better than JB.
Go.
Yeah.
L'chaim, everyone, l'chaim. I'm honored that I'm close enough and I'm able to be in close proximity and come in and spend the yartseit together with my mother, and Rachel's here, and Rivki and Shimshon are here. So it's a great honor. Today, being that Nosson sort of hijacked the entire Lag Baimer for all of us, I think it just describes a little bit of his personality. That Nosson did things in a very overwhelming way, and he didn't just pick a quiet day. Not that he would chas v'shalom choose this, but it just describes that a lot of the things that we talk about on Lag Baimer, how it was the end of the big Zedus that took place during times of the Ashpi, and the Ashpi's yartseit, and Lag Baimer is a special day. And all the things that we learned in regards to this day, many of them, we can just custom make this thing a fit to Nosson. So it's just a very comforting thing to know that it was just befitting for Nosson. 10 years is a very significant amount of years. We're at a point where I never thought we would ever be. And it's just very sad. And I just have no words to describe the feelings. So I'm going to mute myself. Sorry.
You're muted. Suli, you're muted. 1 second. Who muted you?
We have a remote.
Also, it sounds like there's another phone on in that house because you have an echo. Okay. Go ahead. Continue.
We're just yentas. We want to see every screen, so we have a few phones. Yeah, I don't have. I think mommy should share something.
Come on.
Surely, you have a few screens. Surely,
Yeah.
you want to have a few screens. That's fine, but you have to mute this. Put the sound off also, not just mute the voice.
Okay.
Then you won't have the echo.
Suli, you finished?
Yeah.
All right. No, Yeshkoyach. Thank you. So some of Nosson's cousins his age also like to ask him to share a few words. So I'm going to ask Nissi to share a little bit. Now, it's really very humbling that some of my cousins today are these big leaders of Lubavitch, Rosh Hashivas, Chashvet Abanim. And so I'm going to ask Nissi to please share a little bit about Nosson or anything else. Go ahead, Nissi.
Yeah, so I'm not exactly Nosson's age. I'm a little younger, but I was with him in yeshiva that year, Tashanayin, 10 years ago, in Miami. And I remember Rabbi Edelman. I remember what you spoke by the Smucha. I remember that word. So I'll just share a short thing. I know in St. Lag Beimer, the Rebbe told us that the Arizal had a Talmud. His name was Avram Alevi. That he felt the Churban so strongly that he used to say Nachem every day. Like every day of the year, even not on Tisha B'Av, he say Nachem every single day. And one year came Lag Beimer and he said Nachem on Lag Beimer, and the Rashbi got a little upset. And he went to the Rashbi told Arizal, how is it that your Talmud, Avram Alevi, is saying Nachem on the day of our Simcha? And Arizal had a Kpeda, and this Avram Alevi, he ended up passing away. So the Rebbe points out that it's an unbelievable thing. This Talmud, he said Nachem every day, which for Pashas means he said it Simchas Torah, he said it Purim, he said it Shabbos, Yom Tov, and there was no Kpeda. Then it came Lag Beimer, and there was a Kpeda, and that day he wasn't able to say Nachem. And that's because that Arizal lived the life of Mashiach, lived the life of higher than Churban. That the Rashbi lived a life higher than Churban, so Mela wasn't appropriate to say Nachem. But the Rebbe says another word that we see from here is that even somebody like this Talmud who is living the Churban, and he said Nachem every day, but it was expected of him that it came Lag Beimer, the Rashbi expects, and he gives koyach that even someone who's shaykh to Churban should be able to pull out of it and should be able to be b'simcha. And I think this is something that Nosson lived with very strongly, that Hagam, that, especially the last years after Zalman passed away, things weren't so, he didn't have everything so perfect, but yet you weren't able to see this on him. He technically could have been a guy who would say Nachem every day, but he was fakert. Not only he himself was simply was a chayas, like everybody's saying. He made his whole surrounding around him a lebedika place and a freilacha place. So that's one thing. And then today on the chat of the group of Bachim that were there that year on our chat from Yeshiva then, so some of my friends were sharing some things. So I'll just share two small things that were said over there on the WhatsApp group. So one Bacher was saying how he remembers a different Bacher, a friend of ours, that so Nosson had a job of being the mashgiach for Chassidus in the morning. There was a certain Bacher that barely would show up Chassidus in the morning, and he actually would never show up. Like, it was a long tkufa, and he would only come for Nigla. And Nosson called him over and he asked him, what's going on? It turns out that this Bacher told him, he said, I'll tell you the truth. I don't have a chabrosa for Chassidus in the morning, and I don't want to come to Zal and look at the walls, so that's why I don't come. So Nosson took this bacher and he learned with him himself every single day. He named his chavros. His bacher was 5 years younger than him, and I think Nosson was busy at the time learning Shayach and Amunah with Chatzkel Sefer Shiurim. Then he had what to do, but he took this bacher and he learned with him every single day, and that bacher started to come to Seder in the morning every single day. That's one just small story, a quiet thing that he did. And another bacher shared that this is from an Israeli guy. Israeli bacher then yeshivas. He said the shluchim made some sort of like a mitzvah to wake up early, and it was before Yeshvat, like Hashkem or something like that. And you had to be in Zal like early, like 7 o'clock in the morning. And the shluchim would make like hot cake or something like that, to get the bacher to come. So he says he came for the cake, but he remembers coming to Zal like 7 o'clock in the morning. It was dark, and Nosson was there learning Mishnayos Tiny Balpeh with like complete chayas, and like it made a very strong impression on me. Here's a bacher after shluchas already, and he's still learning with such a it made a very strong impression on him, the emeskite of it, and he remembers it till today. So I think that could be the bachayit and aliba, that we should try to take our learning a little more seriously, like Nosson did, and we should try to push for ourselves and for the kids to learn tiny balpeh. And we should be zeicha that we should see in Begashmis, Karim Mamish, Mashiach. My brother Shai also wants to share a short word. No? Okay, cancel.
No, Shai, no? You sure? Okay, no pressure. We're amongst family here. All right, let's say that. So we were very lucky that Nosson came to us a couple of times during our years in Shluchis for Shavuos. Once when he learned his first 12 Prak and Tanya, my father gave him as a gift to send him to Arizona for Shavuos. And then he came other times Simchas Torah. Someone shared with me this video. I'm going to show a little video. Just a little warning for all the Chassidish people that are on this video. It's not a Rebbe video. It's from a YouTube. So if you don't look at this stuff, then you can close your eyes. But the Hayra is quite interesting, I think. So we can maybe debate it after some Fabrengen. So I'm going to share it over here. Oh, 1 second.
I don't know, Mendy. With that kind of a warning, I'm kind of worried.
Okay, all right. I don't blame you. So, all your counseling that you get afterwards, you blame it on me. All right.
A lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not 2 nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not...
Okay.
What was there that you were so scared? You make what's worse?
Whatever. Okay. Anyway, so had 1 second.
Show
I
your
would like
face.
to, let me go back to my thing here. Okay, so here's what I wanted to bring out of the video. To me, this video personifies Nosson. You see, Nosson was a live wire, as they call it. He was truth through and through. What does it mean, truth through and through? That Nosson, he was unapologetic in the things that he did. Something he believed in, he went out full force. But here's the key, is that he also got others to follow, to join in with him. So first, he was a lone guy that was dancing around, and people may have looked at him like he was crazy. But the first guy came in with him, he didn't ignore him, he lifted the person up, and they started to dance to the person. And now the whole yeshiva is following Nosson. Everybody's doing it, everyone's involved in it, everyone is included in it. And to me, this video, in a very powerful way, shows how Nosson lived his life. Because many times, when we see no one's following, no one's looking at us, we get embarrassed, whatever it is, and we start to shy away from everyone looking at us funny. But when you continue, if you know it's true, and if you know it's emes, and you know it's real joy and real learning, and you're following, connecting to the Rebbe, and so on and so forth, then you continue on that path. What's going to happen? Everybody's going to join. And whoever doesn't join, then is embarrassed that they're not joining also, and they want to also join. And so to me, this is, I felt that, this tells me a lot about Nosson. And he had this chayas in life, he had this chayas in learning, he had the chayas in everything that he did. And in fact, the Hayom Yom, for his birthday, Yud HaSivan, talks about the importance of Chassidus. Now, Chassidus overrides everything else. And Chassidus not just overrides, Chassidus brings a geschmack in everything else. And all the learning, it says that the Reb Marash learned with the Tzemach Tzedek for many hours every day, and they went through Chikira, Drisha, they went through, guys, I'm trying to, I love my children over here. Beautiful. So they went through the Kuzri, they went through many different things, and in each aspect that Tzemach Tzedek taught the Reb Marash, how Chassidus brings a geschmack, and it brings life to all these ideas of Torah. And this is my today's lesson that I live with Nosson, this idea, like he said, it came to us from Simchas Torah, and he had a song for every single person in the show. Some of the songs we still sing till today. He pulled them into the circle and he danced with them. It felt like $1 million just dancing with Nosson, and he would lift them up, make them excited, and that is the Nosson that I live with, and that I continue and hopefully not only live with, but also learn from and continue to inspire those around me. I'd like to ask another cousin of Nosson, Levi Kasovsky, to please share a few words. Levi, unmute yourself.
First I gotta find myself, then I could mute myself. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Hi.
So just a couple stuff I put together today. First of all, I've never done this before because I live here. I've always been out here, and there's always this missing out on the Mishnayos, on the group gathering. So it's really very beautiful to be here, and I really enjoyed everything that I've heard so far. I heard once from, we're quoting him already, from Avram Gerlitsky, that when did you know that that a group of let's say the Rishonim, the Achrayim, the Tanayim, the Ge'ayim, when did you know when an era was over? So the way to tell it was when the greatest came along. So I think with the Ge'ayim it was Reb Haigain, he was a very great guy. The Tanayim it was Yehuda Nasi. When you have a really great, outstanding personality, that's when you know that it's the end of the era. And you can say the same thing with Nosson, being at the end of such a big, beautiful family. He was really something that was very great. And I just want to add to this. This is what I heard, but what I want to add is that the greatness comes from being the last, from the trickle-down effect of having all this a beautiful family to learn from, all these parents, siblings. That's what makes somebody great. And although Nosson was unique, he definitely got it from somewhere. I think, you know, we're talking about 10 years going by, and you know, hopefully, you know, it's very painful at first, but the pain goes away a little bit. But at the same time, there's the distance that it's a long time ago. That's why it's so important to share stories about Nosson. I just want to urge everybody through a Edelman WhatsApp or a Deitsch WhatsApp afterwards. Feel free to share something. It could be silly, it could be stupid, it could be something small, but people want to hear stories from you. So a couple stuff. I remember one year I was with whenever we used to go into New York, we'd always stay by the Deitches, and used to sleep in Nosson's bedroom. I remember one year I was there for Tishrei, and they had a whole basement of Israeli Bachrim sleeping there for the whole Tishrei. And I just remember how Nosson would go downstairs with them to the basement, and his Hebrew wasn't so great back then, and he was sitting with them, farenging, joking, laughing, having a great time. And it struck you for two reasons. Number one is because Nosson wasn't afraid to be embarrassed. You know, it wasn't his native language. It wasn't his crowd, and he wasn't worried. He wasn't worried to, wasn't afraid of being embarrassed or of failure. He was just happy to be there. And number two is he was friendly to anybody. He was friendly to the people who were popular, weren't popular. And he didn't make decisions based on, like most of us do, based on, you know, how it'll be perceived or what other people are thinking. But Nosson made decisions based on, as Shirley said before, the MS. You know, he thought something was right. He did it. He didn't worry about if it would fail, if it would succeed. That was his personality. I remember he came for, after Zalman passed away, he came for the summer. He had a little yeshiva in the summer in Springfield. And there's one guy who you refer to as the magnet. He's just a guy who hangs around and nobody knows where he came from, and he's there. And Nosson got close to him, and he used to call this guy. I remember in Springfield, he would call this guy up out of the blue to see how he's doing. And nobody called this guy up, but Nosson, of course, he was the only person who thought about this guy. I remember going to Bol Shefer on Rosh Hashanah, and we were walking for miles in the rain. It's getting soaked, and Nosson's excited, he's singing. That joy of life was always there. And also, it was mentioned a few times before, something that stood out was when Nosson was a Bachar, just the amount of energy and effort he put into learning. And whenever I would meet him, I knew he's going to share a vart, share a thought, share something he learned. He really, a lot of hasmadish, a lot of energy went into learning. And I just want to share one last story. At the first yartseit, I remember Many Machkin worked on a float by the parade to commemorate Nosson, and it was dedicated to Tanya, dedicated to Nosson. And I was involved a little also with Mendy working on it. And I remember we needed some materials, some supplies, and we went to one of the local hardware stores in Crown Heights, and there was some guy who was helping us out. And in the middle, he's asking us, he says, "What's this for? What's the, you know, you're a bunch of Bachrim, what do you need all these materials for?" So we explained, this is for our cousin, for Nosson. And as soon as this guy heard it was for Nosson, his whole entire demeanor changed. And he's so excited to be helping us out. He gave us a discount. And that's really who Nosson was, that it's somebody who he met, who he knew. This guy felt like, Nosson's my friend, and I want to do a favor for whatever's happening. So I want to say l'chaim, it's good to be here, and I wish we could be here for a better reason, but you know, doing this makes us feel closer to Nosson, and we should really feel closer to Nosson with the coming of Mashiach. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Amen. L'chaim, l'chaim. Thank you very much. So the reason, if you Shlomo Yizayu, if you want to know why I gave the Akdama to that video, is because I spent $3.50, wasted money, and I bought Zman streaming. They have like streaming videos, Zman. So I wasted $3.50, or worse than the $3.50, I wasted a half hour of my time. Because I have this pathetic video. Basically, they took pictures and put it in like videos that they took from YouTube. Because it comes from Zman streaming, so they have like a stadium. And basically, they block out all the ladies in the stadium. So the whole screen is blurred out. Anyway, a real waste of time, waste of money. Anyway, so in case anyone comes from those Kaizen, I'm just giving a heads up. Anyway, back to this. So I would like to ask my dear nephew, amazing shliach in Northern California, San Jose, to please share a few words. He's also the closest in age, nephew close in age to Nosson. And so I asked Shaya Bernstein to please share a few words. Shaya, you can unmute yourself. If you find your face. Where are you, Shaya? You there? Okay. Anybody see Shaya on there? There he is. No, that's not Shaya. No, that's okay. All right. So in the meantime, till Shaya finds out, I'm going to ask Mendy Mochkin, my Taira cousin, my Gitshir in Ahale Taira, Ahale Menachem Educational Institute of Higher Education, the leader in teaching the Lubavitcher youth, and send out the most shluchim from any Jewish Lubavitch institution. I'll ask Mendy Mochkin to please share a few words.
There are people we think about when the yartseit comes around, but Nosson is someone I find myself thinking of all the time. And he's one of those people that, if you have to look back and think of people that you miss and you wish they were here with you, he's definitely on the top of the list. He really excelled in all areas. And he was a person, a companion who you would find good company no matter what you were involved with. It's not just like an ordinary friend who is a good companion in some areas, but in other areas, lav dafke. Nosson was a good companion in all areas. So he's really someone who you constantly find yourself, no matter what the circumstance, thinking, you know, what if he was here? It would have been geschmack to have him here. When I was 14, 15, 16 years old, I had a mitzvayim route in Manhattan. And then when I went away to yeshiva, so I was lucky enough to find that Nosson Punkt was available for a mitzvayim route, and he took over the route. After 10 years ago, after Nosson passed away, so I contacted some of the people from the mitzvayim route, and they all remembered him, obviously, very, very much. They remembered him very clear. They were very strongly impacted by him. But there was one particular guy, an Israeli guy, who would put on tefillin with us, mizman lizman, very secular individual. But over the period of the few months, so it was during the summer after Nosson passed away, he was finally machlit to buy a pair of tefillin and put on tefillin every day, to start putting on tefillin, l'zeichen nishmas Nosson. It was a suggestion I made to him right after Nosson passed away, and it took a few months for him to make it a reality, but Nosson left such an impact on him that I hadn't spoken to the guy in years. I reached out to him, it was an Eisratzim, because, you know, what happened, so I figured let's connect to people that we mutually knew. And that impact was so strong that Nosson left on him that he went up, and it was uncomfortable for him, and something he, not just physically that he has to spend the money and put it on every day, but Baruch Nis also, he was a tough guy, and a guy who felt like he's stuck in his shittis, but he put himself aside, and l'zeichen nishmas Nosson continued to have that impact and continues to have that impact. Nosson was somebody was hat gemeint von sich und gemeint von jenem. You know, often you find yourself split up in two categories. You either find yourself in a place where b'makim sheinish, so you gotta rise up to the occasion and take the pulpit. But the moment there's somebody else there who could stand up and take control, you could curl up in your own little corner and be satisfied with not having to entertain the crowd. Nosson was somebody who when you went with him, on the one hand he was, you knew that it's going to be, the crowd is going to be served, because Nosson is going to get up there and he's going to take over. He's going to run the show. But at the end of the day, he's never going to give you a free pass. He's going to make sure that he's not going to let you off the hook. And he's going to make sure, so he really had that, both of those qualities in him very strongly. We find that Ashbi, Reb Shimon ben Yochai, was in the cave for 13 years. And in a way, you could say he was in, like the Rebbe says, he was in isolation. The Rebbe doesn't use the word, but the Rebbe has a sicha in Chelik of Beis. The Rebbe speaks about how he was in isolation for 13 years. And in a way, a person gets comfortable in isolation. Rashbi started performing all the mitzvahs. Most of the mitzvahs he performed beruchnius. He didn't have the opportunity to do them begashmius. But we find something interesting about Ashbi, that when he came out after 13 years, the Gemara says that Kol Hecha, that wherever Rabbi Eliezer, his son, gazed at and burnt it, his fiery eyes consumed it and destroyed it, Rabbi Shimon quickly came and healed it. Rabbi Shimon, even though he was removed and isolated from the world for 13 years, he came back with full force, and he healed the world, and he made the world a more beautiful place. He was interested. He engaged the world. He didn't. So all of a sudden, there are certain people who they're constantly social and outgoing because ultimately they seek outside stimulation because there's nothing going on inside. They get sick of sitting with themselves because when they sit with themselves, they get depressed. So they have to go out and socialize and be out with people. So that's why the isolation makes them crazy. They need to go out and be with other people. Then there are people that isolation actually is a place where they're most comfortable, because here they use every single rega, and they could they're stimulated within because they're learning, they're davening, they're using their mind. So all of a sudden, it's not that the isolation is a place where they thrive. They're very comfortable, and they have to push themselves to leave the isolation and go out to the world and share what they have with others and engage with others. Nosson was somebody who was really comfortable in both areas. He was comfortable in isolation, and he knew how to use every single rega. And on the other hand, he pushed himself to jump out of the isolation, not because he strived to have a social connection, because he felt empty within, but rather he was full within, he was happy within, but he wanted to share that with others and really make the world a holy place, which is what the lesson we learn from Rashbi, and the lesson we should take primarily in our day right now, where everybody's sitting for a long while already in isolation, and we shouldn't chas v'shalom feel sick and tired of the isolation because we feel empty within, depressed within, that I have nothing going on. Rather, we should fill our time wisely, like Nosson would do. That every single rega is make the most of it. That I could look back at this 2 months of isolation and I accomplished something tremendous with my life. But at the same time, we shouldn't get comfortable in isolation. We should go out and caravelt and really have an impact on everybody. So ultimately, just to conclude with a bracha, that I know Nosson is now in a way from Lagabe us, Nosson's in isolation. He's sitting Lamayla and Gan Eden. He's not in isolation. He's sitting comfortable with everybody. But Lagabe uns, so just like when a person is in isolation, if they're a teichendik person, they're not in isolation. They're very comfortable with themselves. They keep themselves company. Nosson knew how to do that. And Nosson's comfortable in isolation. But Nosson shouldn't be comfortable. He should have that other part of him also, that he just wants to get out and burst forth and share everything he has with everybody here. So Nosson and Hashem, in his style, should Hashem quit the isolation, just like we all want to quit this isolation already and demand the Mashiach should come in, and Nosson should be back. Take it from Yad, Makenu Bereshenu, take it from Yad Mamish, L'chaim.
Amen, amen, L'chaim, Shekayach, thank you. L'chaim, L'chaim. Is Shaya Bernstein on? So he's going to share something?
3 little kids putting them to sleep, Mendy.
Okay, no problem. All right, so I'm singing on Egan. Ay, 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 See, Mendy Edelman is on. Mendy, can I share a few words? I know I'm putting you on the spot here. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll just share something small. So, obviously, like Shirley said before, that Nosson took over Lag BaOmer, and like Mandy said, that it's not just Lag BaOmer when it comes to this day that you think about Nosson, but the amount of times that I find myself daydreaming and thinking about Nosson, or dreaming at night about Nosson, is almost hard to count, because Nosson had that type of impact. And one of my early memories of Nosson is when I was in camp in Gan Yisrael. I was 8 years old. We were 4 cousins in one bunk. It was me, Nosson, Mendy Muchkin, and Nosson Zaghi. We were 4 cousins in one bunk. And coming from Springfield, first of all, I had no clue what's flying. Coming to Montreal, and all I knew was that every morning there was an alarm clock on the bunk underneath me. It was Nosson's alarm clock. He had a watch that he tied around his bed, and he would get up and he would go somewhere. I had no idea where this kid going at so early in the morning. No one else in the bunk went anywhere, but I found out later that Nosson was going to Coco Club and running This is something that I had no idea. So that was just the starting point. But from more recently, everybody knows that Nosson was his last year in Florida, in Yeshiva in Miami. So why was he in Miami? The year before, Nosson was in Yeshiva in LA. He was on Shlichus in LA. And at that time, the Shlichus in LA was the most coveted Shlichus. Nosson got Shlichus in LA. And it was a 2-year Shlichus. And Nosson went with a chashuv group of Bachrim. And the Bachrim there had an interesting dynamic. But Nosson left after that year of Shlichus. So why did Nosson leave that year of Shlichus? And the reason was, and I spoke to him about it before, asking him why he's leaving, it's because the reality was, in LA there was no challenge. He had a bunch of Bachrim, his group of Shluchim that were with him, very nice and fine people, but L'chura, you could say that most of their egos were higher than the next. And Nosson was much too pnimi to be in that group of Shluchim. I don't know what they were up to, but Nosson was not a challenge for Nosson to be in that yeshiva. Nosson wanted to go to a place where he can have an influence, and where he can be an influence, and where he can gain from it. And over there, that he didn't belong there. And it's really a mysterious nefesh. If you think about it, who else would leave the shlichus and leave it when they did it? But Nosson, he wanted to be challenged and he wanted to be pushed. And if you really think about it, when it comes, the only day that's fitting to be Nosson's day is Lag BaOmer, because on Lag BaOmer it's a day of 2 people. Number one, the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva stopped passing away, and you could say, who is a greater Talmud, a real Talmud of Rabbi Akiva, who said, who said that? That was Rabbi Akiva. Who was a greater Talmud like that? That was Nosson. Nosson absolutely loved every person. Nosson made everybody feel warm. And additionally, it's also the Hilul of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, his inyan was to be Megal Pnimis HaTorah in the world. And who did more than that besides for somebody that learned the entire Tanya Baal Peh, and didn't just learn it Baal Peh, but he made that his life should be that. He didn't just learn it and stop say the words, but he had to understand it and actually make that every single parak has an impact in someone's life. I once heard Ephraim Pekarsky say, we don't just learn Tanya Baal Peh, so we should know what the Aleph Beis are, but we have to know what each parak means. And Nosson surely knew exactly what each and every parak means. And if you look even more in the memories that explain Lag BaOmer, it says that Lag BaOmer is Hod Shebahod. So on the one hand, the Hilul Derashli, the highest day, but Dafka and Hod Shebahod is the lowest level of midas of a person. And Hod means acknowledgement. So there's a one level of Hod, which means we acknowledge, because we have a little bit of an understanding. We don't actually understand what's going on, but we have a little bit of acknowledgement. of what's going on. Haysh b'hay means that we don't even understand anything, but we know that there's something to understand. So when it comes on Nosson's yartseit of Haysh b'hay, we understand that the Eibishter führt the Welt, and Nosson is for sure with us, and Nosson's for sure thinking about us, and we're thinking about him, and our lives are being affected by it. I just want to end off. I found something interesting that Nehemiah shared with everybody last year about Zaidi Zuber. It's in the booklet about Zaidi Zuber. If you look at the last page of letters from Chacha Fagin, you can read it without even noticing what it says here. And it's an amazing letter. And if you just think about it, it can have an impact upon all our lives. And I'm sure, and this is how Nosson's life is. And if you look at the letter is dated Aleph the Rosh Chodesh Adar Sheni Tafshin. So it was right after the Frierdiker Rebbe left Europe and right before he arrived in America. And Chacha Fagin writes to Zaidi Zuber that I bench you with a mazel tov that you had the schutz and you were zeiche to see the Frierdiker Rebbe in Stockholm, and you were meshamashim, and you in a mishimush haroi. And he said, even though that I found out that you were disappointed, that you had no idea that he was coming because you didn't get the telegram saying that the Frierdiker was coming. He says, but don't worry, everything went perfectly and it went well. So if you think about it, Zaidi Zuber got a knock on his door one day, and who opens the door? He opens the door, who does he find? He finds the Frierdiker Rebbe there. The Frierdiker Rebbe is standing by his door. He has no idea he's coming, but the Frierdiker Rebbe is there, and he was able to be mechad to him, and mishamish him, and everything was wonderful. Like the Frierdiker Rebbe, when he arrives in America, writes back to him, and he says how amazing it was. So when I think about Nosson, and I think about not just Nosson, but I think about the entire Deitsch family, and I think about Uncle Zalman, what it means to be a Chassidish Baal Bas, I understand that that's exactly what it means. You have a house where you're able to open the door, and who can walk in? The Rebbe can walk in and be perfectly satisfied. And that's what it means. And I know that Nosson, he tried as much as he could to act in that way, to always work on himself, in order that we should have a nachas ruach to the Rebbe, and Mashiach should come from here b'yameinu.
Amen. Shkoyach, Mendy.
Amen. Thank you, Mendy. Thank you very much. Beautiful. Wow. Thank you.
Shkoyach, very good.
Anybody like to share anything? What anybody know Nosson's niggin? Like to sing Nosson's niggin? Seven of Hearts.
So weird. You shouldn't break it.
The wrong video. Sorry. Oh, that was a video of Nosson. I want to thank everybody for coming. I would like to take this opportunity to wish my mother Arichas Yamim V'Shanim Tovis, Gesund, stark, happy, healthy. She have a lot of nachas from all your children, your siblings, in-laws, entire family, everybody, everywhere. Your mother should be Gesund, stark, and only good to Zachen.
Thank you. Amen. Thank you very much.
Amen. If anyone would like, I'm going to share some pictures of Nosson. You're welcome to stay and to chat. I'm going to unmute everybody. We can all enjoy and all participate. Yeah.
So this is my cousin Nosson.
Thank you, Mandy. And friends and Yankel Zachary put together a special video they're showing.
So much can rush for me.
What'd you say?
They make like videos.
Zalman, go help them. Good, God, how are you?
Oh, Nosson Deitsch. Nosson
No, it's for a Jewish synagogue. That's it. No more cheers. No more cheers.
Anyway, are you uploading and you're still watching?
He's playing a slideshow of Nosson.
Going anywhere?
Winner.
Who's writing? Who's writing over there?
I always believe in poetry.
Don't take any.
Yes.
Man, is there s'more? How are we doing the s'more? Man, how are we making s'mores?
That's lazy and Nosson. Like first time.
Looks like that's the end of my slideshow.
Wow.
Very nice.
Thank you. I'm sure you have a bigger stash of pictures somewhere.
That's really nice.
Give a quick reminder.
One thing before we forget, I had asked the Yankel Zagri to please share a few words, and to my my mistake, I forgot to ask him. Yankala, not too late. You can still share a little.
I thought I was off the hook.
It's not too late. We'd love to hear
Okay.
from you.
Yeah, I usually don't speak, so I won't be that long. I know Nosson was 4 years younger, so I didn't really get to hang out with him that much. But I know in second grade, he wanted by his birthday. Me and him, we shared the same birthday, so I had that connection with Nosson. But he had a birthday party in the house, so of course, Nosson's the most popular of the whole entire class game. And me and Shirley, we were sort of running the show. Being he's in second grade, we're in sixth grade, we didn't know what we were doing. There was one big loud happening party upstairs, downstairs, jumping up and down on the cots, whatever was there. Anyway, as just a side note, I really want to talk about Nosson's legacy, which is, as Chabrim did in Shiva, they decided they were going to start a show. And at that point, which I only got involved 2 years ago, so I don't know much about the beginning, but it was this little teeny room. And back then, everyone was Bachram. But now, Baruch Hashem, 70, 80 members, they have made an extension. They have Nosson's Torah, and last year they got a second Torah. And Baruch Hashem, there's a kollel over there, and there's minyanim in the morning. Obviously not now, but every single year they keep on adding Shabbos for rain, Yom Kippur, all these different stuff. And you can definitely feel a very welcoming environment. And it's no doubt it's because Nosson is the one who's bringing people in there. Sometimes you try to figure out where these people come from, but we know Nosson's bringing them in. I want to share a short story. Last year, by the show, the Instagram, they get together every Weimar for a yartseit, and one of the members of Nosson's show, who coincidentally never met Nosson, or at least he doesn't know of meeting him, because he lived around the corner from Nosson's show, so he started coming there, and he said that he sometimes he wakes up 2, 3 in the morning. He's in his 50s. It's like he can't fall asleep. He wants to learn. He's not going to learn his house. He comes to Nosson's show, and he says he comes to Nosson's show. It's quiet. It's just him, but he feels there's something there, that there's a special kedusha. He feels that Nosson's there with him, and it's like he says it's unbelievable. And he says he shouldn't really say this, but he's like he feels even more amazing than 770. He just feels the kedusha from Nosson is it's overwhelming sometimes. So I just want to share, definitely Nosson's legacy is still alive, and it's growing every year exponentially. Tomorrow night, the shul is making their 10th year dinner. Obviously, it's the 10th year. Everyone's invited to join in Zoom. We will post the information tomorrow online. There'll be a video presentation. Rabbi Yosef Jacobson will speak a little bit. There'll be a little trivia game which everyone can get involved, and then followed by a Farbrengen. So that's all I want to share.
Thank you very much. Really, it means a lot that you're in the shul. You keep it going and you keep the highest there. And of course, the fact, like you said, everyone sits and learns and davens with a geschmack, with a baveda, is truly a bracha and appropriate for Nosson's neshama. Thank you. I'm going to show another video of Nosson. If I can get this thing to work. There we go. Oh.
On the sound.
One second.
YouTube itself, the sound was off.
One second. I don't know. I lost my mouse over here. There we go. 1 second. Okay. 1 second. Why is it not going? Why is it? I know, but it's not going. There we go. Okay, 1 second. Sorry about that.
Screen share.
I'm gonna do regular basic.
Share computer sound. Share computer sound.
Yes.
Man, you should have your kids on the show.
Yeah, exactly. Going now?
There's no audio. On YouTube, there's an audio button. You gotta press the audio button.
Rent them all. Nosson was a kid who always pushed himself to achieve the most he can in a 24-hour period. You know, every woken hour he was doing something, whether it was learning Torah, whether it was doing mitzvot, helping other people doing mitzvot, keeping contact with friends, reaching out, playing with the kids, baseball or soccer, teaching them how to ride a bicycle, whatever it was, he was always there for them. This year, Nosson went to learn in a yeshiva in Florida. When Lag BaOmer came around and he decided to go help a cousin of ours who lives in Tampa, Florida, and help with the Lag BaOmer program that he was having there. He went to Shabbat before. And typical Nosson, who loved to help other Jewish people, took some friends with him from Miami, and they went to Tampa to spend Shabbat there, as well as Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer Sunday morning, he decided, you can't sleep, you gotta get things done. He ran to the mall in the morning to put up some tefillin on some Israelis who work in the kiosks. Then they had some time to kill, and they decided to go jet skiing and have some fun together with his friends. And during the skiing, obviously, there was the tragic accident, and Nosson was taken away from us. For some reason, the Israelis who are at the kiosks decided to take a picture with their iPhones during the time. So this picture was taken just a few hours before he passed away. And it's a beautiful picture, just seeing Nosson full of action, like really in an exciting mood, trying to help another Jew put on tefillin. It just really warmed my heart to know that Nosson really utilized every day of his life, even the last day of his life. He was out there doing mitzvot, not just for himself, but also helping other people as well.
The outpouring of support from within our community has been absolutely incredible. Everybody's asking me, like, what can I do for Shia? What can I do? How can we be of support to him and help him out and do something that'll be meaningful and special to him? I wanted something that I knew would be meaningful for Nosson and for his soul as well. And Nosson was all about the mitzvah. That's what he was. Everywhere he went, Nosson was about having another Jew do a mitzvah. And if this could be the event, perhaps, that would catapult so many people to do more mitzvahs, then I knew it would not be in vain.
In memory of his passing, we've asked everybody to commit to performing a mitzvah for 13 weeks in honor of the 13 years.
For the next 13 weeks, in memory of Nosson Deitsch, I'm going to put on tzitzit every day, no matter how hot it gets in the summer. I'm going to put it on, and hopefully I'll do that for the rest of my life.
For the next 13 weeks, I will be reading from a book called The Introduction to the Tanya. as a way of learning more about my heritage and more about the Hasidic tradition in our religion in memory of my good friend Nosson Deitsch.
I know how important learning is to being Jewish, and especially to Nosson. I know that it was a very big part of his life. So for 13 weeks, I will be doing daily Torah learning.
My mitzvah is to go to Shabbat services for 13 weeks. In honor of my uncle Nosson, for the next 13 weeks, I'm going to help my brother Davi with Shema. For the next 13 weeks, I will light Shabbat candles every Friday, and I will also send tzedakah charity to poor people. For the next 13 weeks, I'm going to help my parents for my brother's bar mitzvah.
I will take on a mitzvah to give tzedakah once a week for the next 13 weeks.
For the next 13 weeks, it's my goal to emulate my role model, Shai and Deborah, and be as patient and as tender and loving with my kids consistently as what I observe when I'm in their company with their children.
For the next 13 weeks, Ken, Ryan, Alana, and I are all going to be studying the Torah portion of the week for our mitzvah. The next 13 weeks are a commitment to bring Shabbos not just to my life, but to my family as well.
For the next 13 or more weeks or so is that I'll come in one of the first ones for Shabbos Minyan to set an example for everybody else to come on time.
For the next 13 weeks, I will do night service Friday and Saturday.
For the next 14 weeks, I'm going to help my mother and father.
It took this tragedy for me to remind myself yet again how we stand at this pivotal moment of this pivotal time of a 13-year milestone, and our community is just an incredible family that we're a part of, and we're so grateful for.
Thank you very much, Shaya. That was just beautiful. And Varleh, a beautiful video.